Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Baggett, founder of Car Dealer Magazine, and today on the show we're going to be talking about car buyers and about what demand, if any, there is out there at the moment. Now, joining me to discuss this is a team from TLA. They're a lead generation agency that sends leads from its network of websites to car dealers and manufacturers. They've been very busy chatting to car buyers via its call centre over the last few weeks since the lockdown began, and they've gathered some really interesting data, which we're going to discuss today, among other things. So joining me from the firm are CEO Anton Hanley. Hi, Anton.
Hey, James.
The firm's Chief Technology Officer, Ed Clark. Good afternoon, Ed.
Hi, James.
And Tony Neal, who is Head of Data Insight for TLA. Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon.
Hi. So welcome to you all. Thank you very much for joining me today. Let's get cracking with it. Firstly, I'm going to come to you, Anton. Tell us a little bit about your business and how you've been affected by the coronavirus crisis yourself.
Yeah. So TLA started in 2002, and basically over the last 18 years, we've built the largest new car lead generation provider in the UK. We pretty much work with 80% of the new car brands in the UK by their agencies, and we're generating about 50,000 consumer inquiries per month, and that's through working with a network of publishers such as Honest John and Next Green Car, and via some publications which we own ourselves, and we outreach via social channels and search channels, and yeah, we've obviously seen the market turn off. You know, we launched a pilot on the 17th of March, which was deploying all team members to work from home, and obviously the government communicated the lockdown the 24th, and basically all business switched off basically on the 25th. You know, since then we have seen that the market slightly open back up. We're expecting to deliver about 10% of the revenue forecast for Q2, and that's based on working with partners, but with brands and agencies where we're engaging with consumers who basically are suggesting that they're interested in buying a car when the market opens. So yeah, independent aggregator, and we're here supporting car manufacturers generating the right customers for their product range.
So you're taking budget from the manufacturers who want to generate new car leads and then feeding them into the dealer network. Is that done back by the manufacturer, or do you feed directly into car dealers?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we basically integrate directly with the car manufacturer's CRM, so the data is submitted straight into the CRM, so it's routed as efficiently as possible to the relevant dealer.
Okay, so you've obviously got a huge amount of data off the back of this. I'm going to move to Tony now. Thank you for that, Anton. And I just want to let's talk a little bit about this research that you've done over the last couple of weeks. We ran a piece on the Car Dealer Magazine website a couple of weeks ago now, with you guys saying that there still is some demand out there from new car buyers. You had some interesting statistics that came off the back of that. What's the latest picture on that?
Yeah, thanks, James. So just to give a bit of flavour to this, really, and just jumping on what Anton said as well, we thought we would undertake a consumer survey as a response to the fact that there was so much uncertainty on the demand side of the market. We've seen some defiant supply side action in the last few weeks, but demand side has been reasonably uncertain. As Anton said, we are an independent, we are an aggregator, we work with a whole host of brands, and our main aim is helping consumers find their next purchase, what the right vehicle for them is. That puts us in a really unique position in the sense that we are having daily in-market conversations with buyers. So we thought we were perfectly positioned to be able to almost touch on a snapshot of what was happening in the market. Obviously this will change, but as of right now, we think we've got a pretty good view. So what I'll do is I'll just walk through some of our key takeaways, first of all. So we've got 600 consumer conversations and responses from those 600 consumers. So it's a reasonably good sized, decent data set. And we've come across two primary behavioral trends. One of those is that the bulk of demand is being pushed into the second half of the year from vehicle buyers. We, as per our results, 40% of those that we surveyed said that they were not planning to delay their purchase timescale. That, I think, is a function of the fact that we typically engage with an in-market, very high intent car buy, and that that may be consumers coming to the end of PCP deals, or those who are financially unimpacted. They are not going to change their purchase timescales. The other 60%, so those 60% who said they would actually push their purchase timescales, have split their timescale as follows. So of that 60% have said they were pushing 1 to 3 months, 30% are saying 3 to 6 months, and the remaining 10% are saying 6 months plus. So generally speaking, most consumers are pushing their demand to the end of the year. This is first party data. So as I said, we collect this as part of daily conversations within market consumers. It has been verified by third party studies that we've seen over the course of the past week as well. Auto Trader ran a study last week, which suggested that 70% of buyers were still planning to buy now or waiting until later in their terms. And another one of our questions partway explains this. So we asked consumers how likely they would be to actually purchase without visiting a dealership, and only 53% of consumers said they would be unlikely or very unlikely to purchase without visiting a dealer. So they recognise the importance of dealers in their purchase decision. So as a response, we are expecting to see that demand bottled up and moved into the second half of the year.
So, sorry, just to interrupt you, a quick question on that front. So those that are looking to buy now, what sort of buyers are they? And is there, importantly, anybody out there to serve them at the moment?
In terms of who they are, from the conversations we've had, a lot of those are those who are in market for necessity reasons. So not everybody is in market because they necessarily want to buy a car. Some people simply need to buy a car. So as I mentioned, people coming to the end of deals, maybe. The other category we found is those who are financially unimpacted. So not everybody is being financially impacted by the current circumstances, although I imagine the majority of people across the country have. And they will carry on with their purchase activity regardless. There's been various studies in the last week, and McKinsey did a study, and as I said, Auto Trader have done a study to suggest that there are still some consumers in market, even though it has, as you'd expect, significantly dropped.
So are you finding that those leads those genuine leads that are getting to dealers are actually being served in any fashion at the moment? Because most dealers I speak to at the moment are putting sales on hold. But I agree with you. There are some key workers out there who are going to need a car, and they're going to need it sorted now. So I'm just trying to understand if there are people out there transacting at the moment and how that's happening.
Yeah, well, we're still running some activity at the moment. So we are still engaging with some brands, and they are still sending presumably leads through to their dealer network. So some of those leads are still being serviced. What we found with the message that we almost want to send is, even if dealers don't have something to sell, there is definitely still something to say. So that's not a line that I've come up with off the top of my head, by the way. That was something from Sophos 3 earlier in the week, but I thought it was a fantastic line to reference. With that demand primarily being put on the back burner, we think that dealers need to engage with consumers now. Throughout this period, there will be a lot of consumers, even if they're not in market to buy in the next 3 months, they will certainly be in market to buy in 3 to 6 months' time. Right now is the time to get in touch with those consumers, as if I just come on to the second point shortly. The other trend that we found from the buyers that we've talked to is that they are planning or are already doing a significantly increased amount of research, or they're intending to spend the next 3 months, however long it takes before we get out of lockdown, to increase the amount of research they will do before they're allowed to actually go and buy through a dealer again. So 60% of buyers that we spoke to actually said that they would switch brands if they could not acquire their preferred brand, which that is in line with normal recessionary or economic downturn trends. We see brand loyalty being stretched as consumers start to consider more affordable options, or they feel the pinch and they look at a wider set of potential vehicles. And Auto Trader, again, referencing that study, which was great, 88% of consumers have said that they are intending to increase or keep their level of research the same during the next few months. So we are seeing an increase in research. So as going back to the original point, just because there's not necessarily a huge amount of demand ready to buy right now doesn't mean those conversations with consumers shouldn't continue in some capacity. There is still something to say. Consumers are still in market. They're still showing a propensity to maybe buy in 3 months' time instead of 0 to 3 months' time. There is still a conversation to be had.
What sort of percentage do you think the drop has been in inquiries? I mean, if you were, how much smaller is that demand than it would have been at this normal time of year, in your experience?
We are the magic number we're coming across a number on our own channels is at 40%. So just because the demand has gone doesn't necessarily correlate completely with inquiry volume at the same time. You know, not everybody who submits an inquiry is necessarily going to buy a car or at that stage of their purchase journey. There are a few market stats that I've pulled out which may help answer that question. So obviously outside of the 44% year-on-year decline in sales that we saw reported earlier in the week, we've got some other data that we've seen from Sophos 3 earlier in the week that suggested that visitor numbers to manufacturer sites fell 26% between the start of March and the lockdown imposition. That is based on February numbers. And since lockdown, it has fallen to a 62% low. So we are seeing significantly fewer consumers actually using first party as in brand sites. Engagement has also fallen on those sites. We've seen, again, referencing some Sophos data here, buyers are spending 16% less time on site. They're consuming 18% fewer pages every time they do visit a site. And the calls to action that those manufacturers have on site, they're engaging with those 50 to 70% less. So I can't give you a magic number, unfortunately, but in terms of the fall in demand, it's impacted both volume and engagement. We have a lower number of consumers and they are less intent on buying at the moment.
Thank you for that, Tony. I'm going to come back to you in a moment. I'm just going to move to Anton just for a quick moment. Anton, you've been running this business a long time. You've seen a recession before. What can you advise dealers to do now? Because there is some demand out there, as you've found. What would you advise them to do now to keep those leads warm? Have you got any advice of how they could do that?
Well, obviously the priority right now is people being healthy and safe. But I think wherever it's possible, I think, and I'm certain they are, and I know there's a lot of dealers who are doing it. They're basically enabling their working from home team to engage with that audience, that car buying audience who does want to discuss purchasing their next car. So where there's human resource to deal with consumers who are in market, that should be done, and where it's not, a nurturing program of some sort should be developed so that consumers who do want to engage, who do want to purchase at some point, are being built up in a database so that when the dealerships reopen, that database is there for the sales team to connect with.
Do you think right now consumers are heavily into a research phase for their new cars, or are they simply not interested in new cars at the moment, and that is just going to slowly build as we work our way out of this?
Well, Anthony outlined in the survey results that there are consumers who are at the end of financial contracts where they are in market and they are interested and they are at the end of the buying cycle, but that is a relatively small number. On the whole, the market is significantly down, and purchasing a car isn't necessarily at the forefront of car buyers' minds unless there's a necessity to do so. We're consistently doing these surveys, and we'll report the data back, and we're seeing changes every week. We're committed to speaking to about 600 in-market car buyers, basically on a weekly to fortnightly basis. So we'll be able to just keep providing the updates as the data changes.
It will certainly be interesting to see how that does change over the next few weeks and months. I'm just going to move to Ed now. Thank you for that, Anton. Ed, on the technology side of things, your firm's sending a lot of these leads out to dealers at the moment. What can they do with those right now and how should they treat them? Because there's probably a lot of dealers out there that haven't got many staff at the moment, probably a lot of them on furlough, and they might not know how to deal with an in-market buyer right now. Have you got any advice for those guys?
Sure. So from the technology side, obviously it comes down to, as Anton mentioned, whether they're set up to be able to work from home effectively. Have they got the contact telephony systems, etc., that can run from home, that can field inbound and outbound calls from, etc., and any other messaging channels they can access that can obviously they can engage with consumers through. So that's sort of the area they have to focus on. Obviously, the trouble with technology is it usually takes time to build things and prepare things, and obviously if people went into this situation without being fully prepared to work from home, it's pretty hard to turn things around very quickly. So they may not be able to deal with those inquiries very well. But where possible, it's obviously just getting onto the telephone back to consumers and talking them through. The demand we're seeing, again, from the manufacturers really at this point is more around the prospecting and nurturing types of leads. As Anton mentioned, looking to build up funnels ready for when we come out of this situation. And that's from the technology side, from the work I'm doing is all focused around how do we help drive out of this situation, the other side of it, because obviously at some point we don't know when or how yet it's going to happen, but theoretically in a few months' time the market's going to hopefully bounce back, and at that point everyone's going to be wanting to sell as many cars as possible, and that's where we can really help drive consumers through, and obviously that's where the demand's going to suddenly pick up and the technology then can be improved to drive that.
Thank you for that, Ed. Anton, just coming back to you on demand, there's clearly going to be some significant issues with new car supply as manufacturers have shut down all over the world. I mean, what do you think that's going to mean when it comes to new car sales over the next few months following us getting out of this lockdown?
Yeah, well, James, basically we're just trying to have as many conversation with our clients to discuss what the recovery looks like and what the order banks look like, what the stock looks like, and we're just having very open conversations, and as any good partner does, we're just working through solutions. What we have got is we've got a very strong position in the marketplace to engage with consumers who are looking to purchase a new car. So providing that market is there, we've got quite a significant penetration to it. So obviously it's going to be different from car manufacturer to car manufacturer. And it's literally just working with all our partners to make sure we create the correct solution for each one of those. But absolutely that does pose a threat, the reduced kind of stock levels that are going to be in the marketplace.
So, Tony, do you think that that's going to mean that car buyers are going to need to get in early when this resurgence happens to make sure they can secure their new car?
Logic would suggest so. Yeah, if we are seeing a significant supply side suppression at the moment, then there will be a queue to get your car. Unless some of those consumers who are showing some short-term demand signals, those we've spoke about who are in market for necessity reasons, or those who are planning to buy as literally as soon as the market reopens, can be serviced through stock potentially. Those who have very short-term demand, who are key workers or are in market for complete necessity reasons, may settle for a stock vehicle. That's a possibility. But absolutely, if you are a consumer at the moment, you may not be aware. Again, I'm not sure what level of automotive market knowledge a typical consumer has, but there is certainly going to be an extension of all the times you would expect. So if you are a consumer, yes, certainly from my point of view, now is the right time to be doing that research to see when you can actually get your car in your hands.
Yeah, I mean, I was chatting to the guys at What Car yesterday, and they seem to be thinking exactly the same, that actually some savvy consumers are starting to see that there will be issues when it comes to new car supply, and they're wanting to bank that car now to make sure that they can be covered when we get out of this. I do just want to move on to the sorts of cars that people are researching. Have you seen any difference in fuel type? I mean, has there been petrol, diesel prices are very cheap at the moment. That's probably because nobody can get out there and use it, but that's obviously going to continue for a little while. Has that meant that there's more people looking at those types of cars than there were before? Have you seen a drop off in electric and hybrid interest as a result?
In all honesty, no, not as of yet. Anyway, again, we're not. I don't want to claim that this is concrete information. It's changing and shifting all the time. But as of right now, we haven't seen much of a change. Nothing, at least nothing noteworthy as of yet. But it's an interesting question. I mean, again, I'm sure we'll come on to it later on. But the electric vehicle outlook for the next few months is potentially very interesting. But again, we can come on to that later on, I'm sure.
I mean, there is actually, there was another piece of research that came out yesterday that I was looking at this morning about electric vehicle supply. There is a lot better electric vehicle supply. I think this was another piece by Whatcar. A lot better vehicle supply for electric cars in the market now because that's started to catch up. So I just wonder whether people are going to use this time to research a lot further and maybe they might realise that electric or hybrid is the right vehicle for them now.
Potentially, if they do have time on their hands, then absolutely. We are, as I've said, we've proven almost through the numbers, we are expecting to see a significant increase in the amount of research. People have nothing but time on their hands at the moment. From a supply side point of view, again, maybe jumping ahead, there is concern if a lot of these electric vehicle, particularly batteries, are manufactured in the Far East. Obviously, Wuhan has very recently come out of lockdown, so that supply side constraint may lift, but there is also the disparity, or at the moment at least, between prices. Electric vehicle prices are still priced at a premium above their combustion engine counterparts. So, and as you've quite rightly said, fuel prices at the moment are nearly historically low. So electric vehicle demand may increase as a result of expended timescales, but there are certainly factors that are working against it, particularly fuel prices, supply side constraint, and price.
Thank you for that. Ed, can I just come to you on the dealer side of things? There's clearly a lot of people out there with time on their hands that we've discussed. They are going to be researching a lot more. Is there anything the dealers can do at the moment with their websites that you think you've seen out there that can help keep these buyers informed at this time and engaged with that dealer? I mean, have you got any hints or tips on what they could do?
And it's just about information, isn't it? As we're saying, the situation looks like many consumers are holding off their purchase decisions, so they're going to be doing a lot more research. Therefore, anything that can be done to increase information around vehicles and support that research, obviously particularly around electric, there's, as Anthony mentions, there's lots of issues around electric car supply, but there's also massive uncertainty with consumers. Information explaining how the range issues, etc., with electric cars, benefits, disadvantages, issues around servicing, all that would help overcome some of those fears and help drive the electric sales off the back of it. But it's all about, yes, information education, isn't it? I think in this stage, making sure that consumers have the information they need, they're getting it from your service, not having to go elsewhere to find that information, engage with your website, with your brand. So that's where I'd suggest the focus is. And then obviously off the back of that, trying to make sure there's options for people to communicate. So if you've got live chat options that you can be actually having conversation with consumers through the site, obviously in that content, that's fantastic. And just trying to keep people nurtured and engaged as much as possible so that when when things pick up, they're ready to go ahead and purchase.
Thank you. Anton, how do you think the market will change as a result of this crisis? Do you think there will be some major shifts in any way?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I was speaking to a good friend the other day, and he was mentioning that his grandmother, who he never thought in his entire life would ever transact online, is actually transacting online. So I think it's an interesting point that there's a demographic which is going to be brought into online acquisition and online transacting. I do believe this is going to lead to ongoing changes with how consumers research and purchase. I do think directionally more consumers will probably on the back end of this do more online, and I do think it will increase the volume which is transacted purely remotely. I mean, and we're just again working with our partners to support that. We've got a few car manufacturers who are now wanting us to take consumers down a configuration process or take the consumer through their online buying tool, because they want us to to engage with a consumer who's researching a new car, who's interested in purchasing a new car, and rather than just capturing information at that point, saying they're interested in a make, model, derivative, it's taking them a step further in talking that consumer through the configuration of a specific derivative, and if there's actual stock or offers, actually connecting that consumer to a specific piece of stock.
Ed, do you think this will be the dawn of the era of online car sales? It's clearly been slow to start up. There are some interesting new business models out there. A lot more dealers are investing in it. Do you think this is the kick that consumers need to start buying cars online?
I think we'll see some move towards it, but it's still a massive shift in from where things have been, and it's such a major purchase still that consumers will ultimately need to go to a retailer, to dealership, and speak to them and want to have that conversation. I think obviously, yes, there's the more move towards I suppose the mobility type short-term rental type product that could change things, but as it stands, I think with standards to finance and leasing, people are going to want to speak to somebody and go through that process.
Thank you, Tony. I'm going to come back to you for the final word on this. What I'm looking for is some positivity that you can take out of that excellent research you've done. What would that be? What would your message to dealers be that you've learned from that research to give them some hope?
That's a really, really good question. Thanks. There's a few things really. For one, as I've said, demand hasn't disappeared completely. I think if you would have read through a lot of the media or trade press in the last few weeks, you would have expected demand to have completely disappeared overnight. It hasn't happened. There are still consumers out there still needing to buy cars. Again, we've used the examples of key workers or the financially unaffected who still want to buy cars. As Anton said, we are running through configurator leads or potentially looking at that as a lead type for our clients at the moment. Those are typically high intent consumers who are looking, who are at the bottom of the buying funnel. They're looking to specify very specific details about the car that they want, and potentially they could move into an online order. From a positivity point of view, that is really strong, and to reconfirm the message that I said earlier, just because the majority of consumers can't necessarily be sold to at the moment doesn't mean that they shouldn't be spoken to. There is still a lot of activity that dealers can be getting on with now as we speak, and as we've said, we think it's quite important to build pipelines. The second thing I'd say is, and again, this is almost me putting a caveat in place, there's the China story, very different markets in the UK, obviously hugely different culturally, regulatorily, in terms of geographic population and geography and things like that. But even as of this morning, there was a story this morning from Bloomberg suggesting that Wuhan lockdown lifted 2 days ago and the vehicle sales have bounced back immediately. So the China Passenger Car Association is expecting that the sales volume will increase to 2019 levels by the end of April, which is massively much quicker than I think anybody expected. VW sales quadrupled in March based on, albeit a very low February. Again, very different use case, but there are signs of at least green shoots of positivity that we can take. Dealers on reopening, there could be a huge upsurge of demand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lyle. I'm going to hunt that story down because that is a positive one that we definitely should be sharing. A huge thank you to all of you, Anton, Ed, and Tony from TLA for your time today. I think that data is absolutely fascinating, and I'll really be interested to see how that develops over the next few weeks and months, as I said. If anybody watching the show today wants to find out more information about what TLA do, it's tla.co, so head over to their website. If you want to get involved in these Car Dealer Lives in the future, or any questions off the back of today's show, you can email me. It's james@blackballmedia.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter @CarDealerEd or on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I had a few questions off the back of yesterday's show, managed to get some answers, so send them over and I'll do my best if you've got any from today. I'm going to be having a little break over Easter, trying to enjoy some of the sunshine we're having at the moment. But on Tuesday, I'll be back with Ford of Britain's chairman and MD, Andy Barrett. If you've got any questions for him, send them over to me at those methods that I've already mentioned, and I'll try my best to ask them on Monday. On Tuesday, sorry. There's a full schedule for Car Dealer Live on our website. Scroll down a little bit on our homepage and you'll find it, or check back every weekday at midday on cardealermagazine.co.uk and you'll see a link to our next live broadcast. And if you're over on YouTube, hit subscribe. You'll get a notification when we go live. So that's about it from today. Thank you very much to our guests from TLA, and I will see you on Tuesday. Have a great Easter. Goodbye.